So, okay, here's the thing. I've been getting back into the SCP Foundation recently, but half the time when I go to a friend to talk about it, I have to explain what it is first before being able to talk about what specific SCP thing I wanted to talk about, like antimemetics or SCP-4000 or the pataphysics department or what have you. If those last three terms sounded at all unfamiliar, stick around. This video is for you. Now, originally, I was thinking that someone else would have made this video already, but searching it up on YouTube largely either gave me insanely long videos or videos that were, not up to my standards. I mean, look at some of these comments from those videos. Nothing against these creators, they're usually doing their best, but still. So, what is the SCP Foundation? The SCP Foundation is an open collaborative fiction writing project located at scpwiki.wikidot.com, which has roots in science fiction, urban fantasy, cryptozoology, and that which Wikipedia calls new weird, among others. If you want a general idea of the tone we're about to get into, try mashing up Gravity Falls, Welcome to Night Vale, Remedies Control 2019, Doctor Who, Inside Job, and The Cabin in the Woods. That's the general vibe. This video isn't about the history of the site, so I'll keep this part brief. Basically, it got its start with amateur horror and creepypasta writers in the late 2000s and early 2010s, mostly writing horror or horror-adjacent material, before evolving over the ensuing decade to lean less heavily on scary and more on interesting, weird, and spooky. A lot of people kind of miss that and still falsely interpret the entire site as being a horror or creepypasta site, but for what it's worth, pretty much all of my favorite SCP pages are non-horror ones. Okay, before anything else, I need to make one thing absolutely clear. All of this is 100% fiction. The stuff that we're looking at often plays at blurring the line between fiction and reality, but the SCP Foundation and everything about it is completely fictional. When you Google what is the SCP Foundation, half of the results and some of the Wikipedia talk page are people asking if it's a real thing. None of these things are real. The warning on the front page is there for flavor, and nothing in this video or on the website that I'm explaining are going to hurt you. That said, the SCP Foundation is a secret organization that discovers, tracks down, catches, and most importantly, contains things that, for whatever reason, do not conform to the generally scientifically agreed upon rules of how the universe works. These things, or anomalies, are called SCPs, and they can be animals, objects, people, concepts, actions, basically anything that you can write an article about. Each SCP is assigned a random number, SCP-423, SCP-1471, SCP-055, and so on. The SCP articles are written as records, with each one being a scientific documentation of the anomaly in question, featuring the SCP's number, what it is and how to contain it, and a classification of how difficult it is to contain. These documents are the main part of the wiki, and there are, at time of recording, a couple of thousand of them, written by a lot of authors. Don't worry, you don't have to read 1,000 articles to be a member of the community. Most of these articles are written to be completely standalone. Some of my favorites are SCP-1147, a kind of plum tree that takes on the properties of whatever substance you plant it in, SCP-529, a cat whose back half seems to just kinda not exist in our space-time, and SCP-5031, a murder monster that, and then he says the word salt, and they say I'm proud of him, and I'm not crying, you're crying! The original SCP, the one that kicked off this whole creative writing project, is SCP-173, a statue that moves at lightning speeds when no one's watching and snaps your neck if you stop looking at it. And I know what you're thinking, but SCP-173 was actually written and published in like the exact window of time between when that Doctor Who episode was made and when it aired in the United States, so neither one was a ripoff of the other one. I was originally going to make most of this video a list of different popular and interesting SCPs, but this video is already longer than I meant for it to be, so I'm making a different video to do that. Think of it as an addendum to this video. Sorry guys, you're gonna have to wait until next time. When I finish it, I'll include a link in the card up there now. In-universe, the Foundation is mostly run and staffed by normal or normal-adjacent people like researchers, scientists, record-keepers, felons, and various vaguely ominous, shadowy, anonymous, upper-level, top-secret, ambiguously human, probably humanoid entities, just like any other part-time job. Their primary goal is containment, keeping anomalies locked up and away from the public eye. Because this is magical fiction land, the Foundation has essentially unlimited resources to do this, and they've got a bunch of technology and scientific concepts that we in the real world don't have to aid them in their endeavor. For example, they have these things called Scranton reality anchors that, well, okay, this is a dramatic oversimplification, but basically, if you have an entity that can warp reality itself, the Scranton reality anchor can warp it right back, effectively canceling out or blocking reality warpers. Now, you may be asking where the Foundation gets all the resources and power they need to do all the stuff they do. And this might be a good time to bring up the "there is no canon" idea. See, in this modern era of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Star Wars Expanded Universe, we're used to big overarching canons that, while they may have the occasional contradiction, generally hold the same world building and canon. Iron Man will always have been Tony Stark, a billionaire former weapons manufacturing tycoon. Luke Skywalker will always be a Jedi Knight from Tatooine. Captain Marvel and Waluigi will always be in love. You know, maybe the guy playing Bruce Banner changes, but the Avengers will always have been formed in 2012. The SCP Foundation ain't got none of that! There are a number of things that don't change, like what the Foundation is, what they do, the format of their documentation, stuff like that, but things like where the Foundation came from, who specifically the people are running it, how far the Foundation is willing to go, and even the endpoint, like what will happen to the Foundation in the end, are all kinda up in the air. The wiki itself says that it's not that they have no canon, it's that they have lots of canons, and it's up to the individual reader to decide what they want to be canon. It's a bit like oral storytelling traditions that way. Basically, you don't gotta read 6,000 articles before contributing. Some stuff contradicts other stuff. It's fine. Now, in universe, the Foundation isn't the only group of people around who deal with anomalous stuff. There's way too many groups to list them all here, but real quick, here is a rapid-fire and extremely reductive rundown of some of the more popular ones. The Global Occult Coalition destroy anomalies. The Church of the Broken God worship anomalies. The Serpent's Hand think we should coexist peacefully with anomalies. Are We Cool Yet make anomalous art. Gamers Against Weed make anomalous internet memes. Dr. Entertainment makes anomalous toys. And Marshall, Carter, and Dark auction off anomalies to rich people on the black market. I also, just because I like them, want to make special mention of the Unusual Incidents Unit, which is specifically the FBI's attempt to investigate anomalies. And oh boy, in the SCP Foundation's universe, the US government is not competent when it comes to paranormal research. They are funny though, so there's that. Aw, United States government, you want the magic stick? Go get the magic stick, good boy! Now give it back so the real adults can take care of it. Hey, stop, bad! Stop using your crappy memory erasing drugs to hide your activities. Our memory erasing drugs are so much more effective than yours. Stop it. Anyway, that, open brackets, gestures broadly, close brackets, is the SCP Foundation. Massive, ongoing, urban fantasy, collaborative fiction writing project about a secret organization dedicated to containing the supernatural. If you're interested in more, I'll link some good SCPs in the description. In case you don't feel like reading, I'll link some YouTube SCP readings in the description. And if you're not feeling either of those, my next video is going to be about a bunch of different specific SCPs. I think this project is a really beautiful example of humanity working together in the name of art. None of the people on the site are getting paid to contribute, but they still managed to create some of the most interesting and creative art I've ever seen. Oh, and Five Nights at Freddy's is not an SCP. Stop pretending that Five Nights at Freddy's is an SCP. If I see one more post... Special thanks to my Elder Manticore patron. Open parentheses, close parentheses. If you'd like your name read aloud during the credits, like this parenthetical kitten here, or animated across the screen like these lovely people, my Patreon is in the description.